This is Off the Record, On the Air, the round table where we ditch the PR, push past the headlines, and say the quiet parts out loud. I'm Sheila Wysocki, and today we're tackling a question that's got Nashville buzzing, frustrated, and let's be honest, scared. Is our city still safe?
I sure don't think so. I mean, I don't think so at all. And it's not because of police at all. It's because of the judges and the low bonds and the no bonds. And, last week we had a guy, some DJ, 2 weeks ago, threatened to kill 1,000 people. Says, I'd like to kill 1,000 people. And they let him out for, his bond was $7,500, so he walked out for $750. And he walked out so fast, it's like, well, I'm sure he still has the same plan. He didn't even have enough time in jail to reconsider. It's like, okay, back to killing those 1,000 people. And that's nothing. I mean, we have had, no one is going to turn their life of violent crime around when they're in jail for 36 hours or less. I mean, and we are having people with, the guy, do you remember last Easter, the roasted shooting, the guy that shot 7 people, including, he had just had a crazy road rage issue in Murfreesboro, and his bond was set at $50,000. And he had some money, walked out with $5,000 the same week, and he's still a villain. He's still a bad guy. And in my mind, it's been addressed a little bit recently because there's been so much pushback at the judiciary, and they are elected, that they've got to start putting substantial bonds and holding people for longer amounts of time. But, the whole low bond, let's let people out on recognizance until trial, that whole movement that started in California ended up in Tennessee, of all places. And it didn't work like it didn't work out there.
Well, it's been coming for a while. When I was on the department, we would have issues where a husband and wife would be arrested for the same charges. And she would get a lower bond than he would, So there's been problems for a long time. But Nashville, when it comes to it, it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be the district attorney who is the issue at this point. He's still letting so many people back out on the streets. They're failing to prosecute, and I used to say this in the academy. I get paid by the hour. I can arrest you 15 times. The judge lets you out 15 times. Good. I'm gonna get you the 16th. The judge and the DA didn't dictate what I do, but it also made the morale a little bit bad and made things, because if I'm going to keep locking you up and they're going to keep letting you out, why are we doing the same old song and dance? But to me, it all falls back with the district attorney is why a lot of things aren't safe, and then you need to reallocate some manpower issues, I think.
Well, Nashville's not going to stay the it city that everybody wants to move to if they can't feel safe there, if they don't feel like they can raise a family there. I mean, we all probably remember the days when half the people we knew didn't even lock their doors. Now they're out buying guns, and that's fine. I'm not saying people shouldn't necessarily do that. But to your point, Dennis, and yours too, there's got to be some accountability on the part of the people who are disrupting the fabric of society rather than the people that are playing by the rules, doing what we're supposed to do, having to take matters into our own hands. Because as that escalates, that never ends well either.
Well, but they're not voting. They're not getting out and going, hey, this guy's still letting people out of jail. We need to vote in a different prosecutor.
That's true.
They don't know. People don't know. I think it's becoming, Lori and I do a book club. We talk about know who your DA is.
Yep.
We ask people, raise your hand if you know the name of your DA. Nobody knows the name of the DA. I find that astounding. And I will talk to the local aspect of this. I get a lot of phone calls from families that say, this just happened to my daughter, or this just happened to me. And we're talking about in Nashville, big box stores where people are going in to shop, and you've got people approaching them and asking them for money. One of the stories is a young mother had her 2 children, went through the big box stores. 2 women which we talk about, Lori and I talk about a lot. You know,
Decoys.
it's something being used now where two women approached and asked for money. The woman's with her young child in a stroller and the one walking next to the stroller. When she was leaving, she felt like she needed to get a gift card for these people. Why? I don't know. She got a $25 gift card, and they met her at the door. When they met her at the door, they asked how much. She said, I got you a gift card. And they said, how much? She said, $25. They said, that's not enough. Give me your stroller. She turned around, went back into the store, smart, and got a security man to walk her to her car. When she got to the car, there were two men at the back of her car, and the security guard said to her, you didn't tell me that men were involved. And she said, I didn't know. She got her children inside the car and got out. Now, a couple of things. They were parked incredibly close, so it was difficult for her to navigate the children to get them into the car. She left. Now, when she left, she went home, told her mother, who I'm friends with, and the mother called me, and I said, call the police.
Did they try to follow her?
I don't know that. The mother, they did call the police, but I found it very interesting that her friends thought she was overreacting. That's story number one. Story number two, a friend of ours' daughter, who he's an investigator, went to a grocery store, and this woman was following her around, and she got nervous. She's smart enough and was brought up well to pay attention. When she was leaving, she asked the security guard to walk her to her car. Two security guards walked her to her car. When she got there, there's a man and a woman, the woman following her, at her car, and he said, you get in the car, I'm putting the groceries in, and leave. Second story. She did that, called her dad, and her dad called the store and said, you got a problem. Third story is I'm telling these stories to everyone because I'm concerned that females are targets. They're not just victims, but they're targets.
Yes, we always have been.
Always. So I'm telling like nurses that I see, anybody who's breathing knows these stories. I told a nurse, she tells her patients, one of her patients was at the park and a car had parked very close. I call them kidnapper vans, very close to her. And she was jogging. She asked a man who was fishing to walk her to her car. She couldn't even get into her driver's side. She had to go the other side to get in. I hear that story over and over. So that's our local Nashville now. That's not isolated incidents.
No. And guys, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. But as women, I think we're brought up, be polite. You know, don't tell that man he's standing too close. Smile. Always, you know, be sweet. And I tell women, you don't owe people that kind of politeness in those kinds of situations. Mm-hmm. Do what you have to do. Turn around and say, don't stand that close to me. You know, I always tell women, keep your keys in your hand, not necessarily to use to gouge them, but you've probably got a big horn that you can set off on your car if it's close enough. Keep that by your bedside if you hear somebody outside your house and you don't have an alarm system. These are things I think women constantly have to be reminding themselves and sharing these stories and keeping it in the forefront of our minds. Do you guys have to navigate the world that way?
You want to go first? You want?
Go ahead.
I trust nobody. I mean, that's just the way it was from law enforcement. I don't trust anybody. So I can't be comfortable in a surrounding without watching everything. So my family, my wife, everybody, we've had these conversations, but I think now men are just as big a victim as women. And I say that because it's easy for a man to go up and confront another man and take advantage of a smaller individual or something like that, where a woman, I think, can draw more attention if she's having a problem. So in other words, you might be able to scream louder. You might be, because you're a woman, if Dennis sees you screaming, oh God, there's a woman who's in trouble.
But do you think people get involved? I don't think so.
Some.
No.
I think with when men are bullying women, they get involved. I think when men are, everyone's going, oh, these drunken idiots on Broadway, and they walk. That's the difference. But I think when they say like, whoa, I got to, because I've seen it.
Yeah.
But when men are getting into something, they think, oh, maybe they're both drunk. You don't see it for what it might be, like you said, like when someone's actually looking to victimize someone. But if a woman's involved, you'll get attention. It'll get attention that otherwise people will say it's not my business and walk away.
Well, like I sit in parking lots and watch people. If I'm at a
there's
store,
another episode too.
Yeah,
Chapter we're adding too.
Yeah, if I'm at a store, I watch people.
I
mean,
do
it's
too.
just, and you can tell the ones that are kind of, and I don't mean to stereotype people, but you can say that person's looking a little sketchy, and you can say they're not acting normal based on what everybody else is doing.
But isn't that what we're supposed to do? Is pay attention? That's not
Absolutely.
that's not
but
profiling.
most people want to go about their day. They don't even want to think about it.
They don't
want
want to
think that
get
this
involved.
they don't want to think it's a problem.
They get so worried about, the idea of profiling, but like everyone profiles, and I'm not even going to get too drilled down, but I'll just give you an example. Like some 85-year-old woman with a walker is not a threat to me and never has been. And when I read about it someday that this woman's an 85-year-old woman with a walker is, pistol whipping people, then I'll say, oh, wow, I guess it could happen. But to this point, I have to do that because, like, that's my experience in the world. You look at someone, not that someone can be clean cut. I'm not saying that, and very dangerous. But you are profiling, like if I'm walking down the street and a group of teenagers are walking towards me, I'm going to cross the street and walk the other way. I'm not going to.
Because statistically,
juvenile.
the juveniles, they're the
fearless
ones.
and impulsive, and their
And
brains
their
aren't wired.
crime rate is going up very high in
And there's
Nashville.
no consequences for juvenile crime. And don't let anyone tell you that there is.
There isn't.
They're in and out. There's a very brief holding period. There's no significant time. Yes, every once in a while they can go to like a juvenile detention center for a real sentence, but it doesn't happen very often.
I love that you bring up the word profiling, though, because we get really nervous about that, like we're being discriminatory or just inappropriate in some way. And we were doing some training at my church. I'm on our security team, and one of our associate pastors was leading, being a welcoming church. And he said, we're here for everybody. The last thing we want to do is profile. And, of course, security team member, I'm sitting there and raise up my hand. He goes, I know you do. It's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I have to. Like you were saying, I want to see what's out of the norm. Is it July and somebody just walked in a trench coat? I'm going to be very concerned about what they might be using that to conceal. And so I think we have to be careful about the wording we use because we don't want to do that inappropriately. But we have to be honest and say there are times when it is appropriate to look at people and say, because of the statistics that I know, because of the area that I'm in, or whatever your circumstance is, I'm just not going to take that chance. And if that person gets offended, they just do. And then that's their issue to deal with.
But we have a problem in Nashville that safety is an issue where it's not profiling, it's not the police. As a community, we need to come up with a plan.
Well, there's been some attempts, but the people are like, look at LPRs in Fusa, right?
Exactly.
Look how many thugs and villains from Nashville are being arrested in Mount Juliet every week.
Yes.
I mean, it's almost a joke. Like, oh, Mount Juliet, man, if you commit a crime in Nashville, the whole thing is just don't go to Mount Juliet. Mm-hmm. Don't go to Wilson County because their LPR will pick up your plate. We had 2 tourists, murdered, right, in a taxi or a whatever Uber
Right.
ride share.
And it was the racing.
Yes.
They were
yes.
racing the car at 100 miles per hour.
And it was
Shameful.
Right, and the car would have shown up with a LPR is stolen maybe before these people get murdered. I mean, those are the consequences of not. Someone mentioned proactive. Well, that's what those things are. Those LPRs, they're like flagging this thing. But like if you have counsel, I don't want the trans community to be pulled over and arrested. Well, when has that ever happened in Nashville? When has anyone ever been arrested for wearing a dress? I mean, you can't just say things. This was a council person who said it. Okay, that's never happened.
Right.
Even in the most conservative in Wyoming, I mean, I've never heard of it happening. Someone being arrested for having a dress. So, like, you're not even realistic while people suffer, while everyone is victimized.
That's your clickbait.
Right.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it's just so stupid and emotional.
Are they promoting their own agenda as a council person? Am I going to keep getting votes because people think that I'm on this cutting edge? Just tell the truth.
Right.
We get safer when we know the facts, when we really know what's going on. We can make informed choices for ourselves about where we travel, at what time of night we travel. I'm on the interstate a lot, and I'll stop and get gas at one of those travel centers during the day. Unless it's Buc-ee's. I pretty much trust Buc-ee's anytime.
Yeah.
They appreciate that.
So many people.
But just a regular travel center, I'm not going to stop there as a woman alone at night because I know the statistics. I know that there's all kinds of crimes taking place in those places.
Buc-ee's is a good one, yeah.
Trafficking.
Because if you have to get gas, you have to get gas. I have 3 daughters, basically commuted from UT Chattanooga. And, you got to get gas, and there's better places than others. There's well-lit places, and you.
Well, and here's a tip. If you happen to have to get gas somewhere, it's at night, it's not a place that you would have chosen, but you are where you are. Just be loud and obnoxious and rude. People that want to take advantage of other people want to find easy targets.
Right.
So whip out your cell phone. Pretend you're talking to someone, and you're angry. This bleeping card isn't going through. Well, now they don't want to steal your card because they've just heard that it's not working. I'm almost out of gas. Well, now they don't want to steal your car. And I'm about to lose it on the next person I see. They're probably not going to want to be the next person you see then.
Yeah.
So,
Your protocol calls for a lot of energy. I'm getting tired. I'm getting really tired just thinking
you got to
about
bring the energy.
One of the things that I was taught from the guy who trained me, the Los Angeles police officer, is if you're in a situation that's uncomfortable, act crazy. Mm-hmm. But act on the crazy, do whatever it takes. And that actually works. That's along your line. Mm-hmm. Just do things that people don't think are normal because they don't want attention. Actually, Mike used that in Los Angeles when he walked down the wrong street and there was a gang. And he started acting like a crazy guy walking down, and they parted.
To himself. Yeah, that's good.
I mean, they parted ways. It's the best advice that you can use. Act crazy, act loud. Mm-hmm. But we shouldn't have to do that. We should have people in authority looking out for all the citizens, not a select few. And I feel like that, when you get into these positions, you decide you're not representing the citizens in my neighborhood because we talk about it. You're representing your agenda, so people don't know who they're voting for. They don't know where people stand. We've got to get more involved. And I say that as somebody who looked at all the judges and did a background on them to see which ones, were judges I would want to represent me and make my neighborhood safe. I will say this, Antioch, Bordeaux, and Madison, people are fearing for their safety and changing their lifestyle. So think about that. You have to change your lifestyle in Nashville or in Tennessee When we moved here, you could go anywhere, you could talk to anybody. It's changed dramatically. Criminals are coming here because we're an easy target. And one of the areas that I've looked at is Old Hickory Boulevard and what is that, Franklin Road. I had no idea how many people were robbed or pickpocketed in that area until recently.
Wow.
There is a particular area and restaurant that I have had friends have their credit cards stolen when they're sitting there, and the reason they know it is an hour later they get a call from, let's say, their husband saying, you just spent $3,500 at a location. That area you would think would be well policed, but they can't do anything about it because they arrest them and then they're let out.
Yeah, and I don't even know about that area. I mean, you just know that, like, if you have any doubt that Nashville's changed, and it's you know, it's also it used to be a big small town, like, you know, in the 80s and 90s, and you know, people pull over the interstate if you had a flat, and help you, and so fast.
I don't want anybody pulling over. I really don't. That would make me very
I was just
nervous.
thinking the same thing.
But I mean, it was really was. I remember my daughter got a flat coming out of Hillsborough High School. I mean, 20 years ago, and I just knew. I was at Channel 4 at the time, and I said to the newsroom, I go, someone will be changing her flat before I get there. That's what it was like here. And sure enough, there was this nice old man in a coat, and he actually had a pump-up jack, and he had her half done. And I was like 5 minutes away. That's the kind of town it was like. It's not like that anymore. It's a big city, and it's gritty. And if you have any doubt, go down to Broadway on a Friday or Saturday night. It looks way more like Chicago or New York.
That's why the locals don't go.
That's why they don't.
That's right.
That's exactly why.
It's rough and crazy and loud, and it smells like vomit. It's like, you know, it's hillbilly Bourbon Street. It's bad.
I love that.
I have a theory that goes along with yours, Dennis. When people are just getting in and getting right back out, there's no deterrent for them. They're gonna keep.
Why would you change your behavior?
Exactly.
You've been punished for it.
But I think in Nashville and in the South, because we have this reputation of being the Bible Belt, I think that Christians can be targeted because we're naive. And so people say, well, let's go down south. Those people are trusting. They're naive. They're going to believe anything I tell them. They're not going to have their guard up. And even if they do, they'll feel bad about thinking badly about me. And so I think in a way we can set ourselves up. I don't want to say to be targets because I don't want to victim blame. But I think we just have to be aware that we can't trust everybody as much as we want to, as much as we want to think, I wouldn't do that to you, so you're not going to do that to me. We just can't think that way anymore.
I subscribe to Jeff's philosophy. I trust nobody.
Well, you know, I wrote that book. In God We Trust, everybody else gets a background check.
I love that.
Because you don't know. People are very good at putting on facades. Mm-hmm. And I talked to somebody the other day. They had fallen for kind of a con type thing. And I said, don't blame yourself for another second. These people are good at what they do. They practice it. I said, you work hard at getting better at your job, don't you? They do too. They want to be successful. They want it to be easy. They learn what things work. They learn what things don't. So, you know, be on your guard so it doesn't happen again, hopefully. But don't blame yourself either.
Yeah, no, it's a big, gritty city. We live in a big, gritty, big city. It's a big city environment, and there's a lot of predators, way more than there used to be. Regardless even of trust, it's dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Like you're saying, no trust. I mean, I'm not running around trusting people. I'm telling you the personality of this city has changed in the last 20 years with the influx of people. And I don't know. I mean, most of the people I know are armed, and they are nice, but they'll also shoot you. And when you go to California, they're not armed. You know, I mean, we went to. My kids love to go to Little Tokyo in Los Angeles, and my other daughter and I, we parked about 6 blocks away, and because we wanted to eat at this place, and then we walked over to Little Tokyo. Then we went back to get the car, and at night it was like, it was just, it was dystopian. There was a guy at bubbles of just white phlegm coming out of his mouth, like walking towards us, and and not even like it isn't about like obviously forget about trust. You don't want him to touch you. And then there's a guy with a Dracula thing, and then my daughter, she's 31, and I said, and I had just had open heart surgery, and I said, you want to run? She goes, yeah, let's run. So we just ran to the car. We didn't run like our hair's off, like we ran to the car, because why even like go through the civility of walking when you're in like, what was that Kurt Russell movie? Welcome. Welcome, was it L.A.? Escape from New York. Oh. Remember that?
Yeah.
Snake Plissken. And it's like this, just you turn every corner and there's some new horror. But, that's what, you get. And I don't think we're going to go that far. But, I mean, it's like.
The city's grown faster than they can keep up with. And they did not plan for it whatsoever. And then COVID and defund the police did not help at all.
Didn't help at all. No. And nobody wanted to do it. You look at California's changing all their laws now. They kicked out their DA. You go into the Kroger, it's Ralph's, and they have when you go down the vitamin and medicine aisle, you have to pay for it in the aisle. So if you go down to aisle 12, you have to pay for the Tylenol before you leave.
Oh gosh.
Because they have no shoplifting laws. Just don't touch them. Let them go.
Yeah. Talking about everybody being armed reminded me, Sheila and I were going to a conference one time with another female investigator, and she was newer, and she was talking about, I don't know if it came to it and I had to shoot somebody. I don't know that I could do that. And without missing a beat, Sheila and I both went, well, I could.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's between my family and somebody else, or me and somebody else, and they're dangerous and wanting to cause harm, I practice. I will defend myself.
But you just have to know which side of the fence you're on.
I would say she shouldn't be armed. Wouldn't you agree? If she
I
is
agree.
so
Yes.
hesitating, that gun is going to be used against her, right? If she's afraid to use it?
I would think so, yes.
She is not armed.
No.
She left the
I thought
profession.
you said she's armed. It said, I don't think I'd use it. That
No,
person,
she just said, I don't know if I could.
Then I don't think
Yeah.
You shouldn't carry.
she shouldn't
No.
carry, because it would just be anything that she slowly won't use will be used against her.
Has to be muscle memory. I go with the guy who got me into the business, J.D. Skinner. I don't know if I love or hate him, but we go generally weekly to practice. And I love how he is the one who taught me how to shoot. I love the way he trains me. We talk about gun safety all the time. I think if you own a gun, you have to train yourself. If you don't, put it up and don't carry it.
That's one thing I like about the security team at my church. You have to qualify. You have to be trained by someone that knows how to shoot. And you're not just shooting at targets. You're having to do shooting while you're in motion. I mean, you're doing the whole 9 yards. And if you can't pass that, you can still be on the security team, because there's lots of good things you can do, but you can't carry.
Right.
I want to talk about the zip codes, because I hear a lot that crime, the underserved population is not getting policed and things. I think that they're definitely getting the short end of the stick, because I don't know if they have the readers, the licensed readers in that area yet.
There's not in Davidson County at all. None of them, or Fusus, either one. So there's nothing. Yeah, except there's Bordeaux as the oldest LPR program in Tennessee. Just this one neighborhood, and of course, crime just plummeted. Because you don't want to steal lawnmowers in the one neighborhood that has cameras, and so it doesn't happen.
There's several neighborhoods now that are paying, the HOAs are paying for the LPRs.
Right, yeah.
I've got a friend that runs a security company. As part of his proposal to them, he provides the LPRs at no cost for the neighborhoods. And so it's definitely getting to be a bigger thing. But it helps. I mean, they work.
I think
Yeah, they do.
are definitely an asset. I do not understand why our city council and mayor do not back that proposal.
And the mayor's kind of changed his tune. I think he's, I think everyone has the right to change their mind. I think he's for it now, but it's so interesting because the council is not.
So people need to get involved and speak up. If you want to have it and you want crime to go down, then call the people on the council. Get active. I never say to get rude to these people, but write a letter. Know how they're voting. They're supposed to be representing you. Do you want crime in your neighborhood or not? If you don't, then speak up and get in touch with your council members.
I agree 100%. Because again, what's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody that's not supposed to be in a neighborhood, not doing anything criminal, but doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing, they might get caught. Well, do what you're supposed to do, and you're not going to have to worry about it.
Well, the thing is, there's no expectation of privacy in public.
Mm-hmm.
Your car is registered.
Yeah.
You have a privilege given to you by the state of Tennessee to have a driver's license and to have a license plate and to have a registered car.
Mm-hmm.
The state can revoke that privilege at any time. So if you're on a public highway, if I want to put cameras, LPRs, on a public right-of-way, and you're out in public, there's no expectation of privacy. And there's nothing that's going to happen to anybody if I find out you drive a certain type of car and here's your tag number.
I'm just waiting for a family law attorney to start subpoenaing some of these to see if a client.
But it has to be involved in a criminal case, no civil.
The LPRs, they won't turn those over in civil cases.
That's interesting.
Even the HOAs, when they're bought.
Now, the HOAs is different.
Can do
I was
what
gonna
they want.
say.
That's why it's better to have the city handle it because
Yes.
then people are, let the HOAs do. Well, then they have no guardrails.
Yeah.
The one thing a city can do is have guardrails. You look at Mount Juliet, it's been a wild success.
Officers love, actually, because I have a Facebook page. It's got 6,000 officers on it. It's just as they graduate the academy, and I started it a long time ago, but they have a very good reputation on that page for being proactive and being somewhere that officers who want to work can go and work. And that's the thing is most officers who get on, they want to go work. They don't want to be hogtied when they know that that's a criminal right there, but I can't touch them. That's a big issue. And when you have a tool like LPR and it's proven to work over and over again, for the city to keep going back and going, let's postpone it. I see that as outside influences who have been elected to positions in Tennessee that have no knowledge of Tennesseans. They want to change. They moved from somewhere else because they didn't like the way the lifestyle was there. Yeah. And now they want to change the lifestyle here. Our lifestyle here has been for decades. We like to be safe. But they don't take that into account anymore. And it goes back to the conversation we had about politicians not voting their constituents' way, but only voting the way that they feel like they should vote.
But the community needs to speak up. They need to educate themselves and start speaking up that this is a problem.
Look at your voter turnout.
Well, exactly.
Right? So, how else can you educate? You're on TV every day. You're on the radio. You're in print. Everything you see is crime.
They're going to listen to this and start voting and showing up and writing letters.
Right now, we're going to have 100,000 more people vote just because of this.
You know what? I hope so.
Yeah.
But I do know if you're someone who does speak up about it, you become the problem. So just saying that this needs to be done, then people start looking at you and go, well, what's your agenda? I can tell you my agenda. I want to be safe when I go to the grocery store. I want the girls that go to the grocery store or young mothers that go to these big box stores to be safe. It's going to take someone being murdered from a privileged zip code for anything to be done. And shame on every single person in this leadership role that doesn't do anything. That's what it's going to take. We've got tourists that were, I consider, murdered.
The girl in the Greenway. I would argue that, right?
Yes.
The Vanderbilt girl.
It was
the Fuses thing. Yeah. And then the Belmont girl.
And that was someone else who was let out.
because of
Before
mental
they
health.
should have been.
How many times? 50-something
Because of
times?
mental health, that's been
Yeah.
a get out of jail card free as well. Like, oh, they're unfit to stand trial. That is being crazy really keeps you out of jail these days.
But that's-
up until now, hopefully now there's some.
Well, their parents are suing, correct?
Well, yeah, and the law's changed. You don't get out.
When the discovery comes out, I think people are going to be just appalled that what happened, and that falls into the lap of the district attorney. And it's a very important position. People should know the name of the district attorney, and they should pay attention to who he's letting out.
And please be aware, district attorneys and sheriffs, they don't have bosses except for the voters.
Exactly.
All right. Nashville, we hear you. We see the fear. I see the frustration and anger in my community. We talk about it. But if you don't stand up and speak up, it's going to continue. And you need to work with the police. You need to work with the community leaders, telling them your position. And if you don't write letters and vote or go to city council meetings, it's going to stay the same.
It's on you.
Yeah.
It's part of it's on you. It's always part on you, right? When things are bad with your community, part of it's because you didn't do enough. I always felt
But nobody wants to point the
personal
finger at themselves.
responsibility, yeah.
It's always somebody else's fault.
Well, and
So much
remember,
better.
there's always people that literally can't vote. They're too young, maybe people that are disabled to the point where they're not able to do that. We've got to protect those people as well. So, yes, do it for yourself, do it for your family, do it for the people that literally cannot speak up for themselves.
Don't wait for it to happen to you because it can. Subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel, Off the Record on the Air.
Like, subscribe, and share.
Like, subscribe, and share.